Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our monthly series, Passive Income Made Simple. We're actually having a slight branding change. We're going to call it Passive Income to Freedom, because what's the point of making it simple if we can get it to freedom, right? So thank you so much for joining. I'm excited, super excited to have a guest speaker today. We actually met on LinkedIn. We never met in person, but we've had multiple wonderful conversations to date. But before we get started, I'm going to ask again one more time. I would love to hear from everyone where they have been the past few years. What's the best, I guess, the place they think they would love to stay, where they have been that they want to go. I would love to see that. Oh, the chat is disabled. Oh, that's unfortunate, because in the past it was enabled. So let me see. All right, then maybe let's not share that this time. Bad on my end, but I assume you guys have places that you can go. Thanks for Henry for using the Q&A feature to let me know. So apologies on my end, but I imagine you all have somewhere that you want to go, not just for a few weeks out of the year. So that's why we're here. But before we get started, just want to do a quick introduction about me and my company, the sponsor of today's webinar. So as I said, this monthly series is called Passive Income to Freedom, as I rebranded. And all the information we share is for this, has a disclaimer that it's for general purpose and knowledge only. And please consult with your advisor before taking any financial decisions. And here we're really to talk about three things: financial time and geography freedom. And why is that so important to me and perhaps important to you is, for me, I'm originally from China. And, although I have built a family here with my husband that you see, and also my host family who accepted me when I was 16 when I came. But I also still have a family in China and, have younger brothers and sisters, and just being able to be with them is just so important. Today, I posted on LinkedIn about how I really wanted geography freedom, but, I do love my current W-2 job. However, it does have a constraint on how long I can work remote and different things. And I just really want to take control of my life and design life by the way I want to as well. And I'm happy that you guys are here as well. If you ever want to learn more about me, here are some of the podcasts I've been on. And really, I wanted to pursue for freedom, and I was trying to figure out why. And then I started trying to solve the financial piece with investing in single family home and duplex. And that's what I ended up dealing with, trash and tenants. And I figured out a way to group purchase real estate and passive investing through a method called real estate syndications. So essentially group purchase. If you're not familiar with that, I eventually started a company to help others to do the same as well. So me today, a little more formal introduction. I'm a managing partner of Life Mission Capital. We'll have a little bit over 1,000 units as general partner and fund manager, and been investing since 2019. And my professional background is more data analytics, fire internal audit, a little bit jack of all trades. And on my team, we'll have David Monroe. He's a CCIM, Certified Commercial Real Estate Investment Member, and has been investing in real estate for a long time and teaches a lot of things to other CCIMs as well. And we also have Derek Gilder. He's an underwriting consultant, and he's been doing a lot of investing as well. But he also works for a really large $36 billion private equity firm. So he helps us with some of the underwriting aspect. And we also have a few other partners that's not mentioned here that we hand selected to help us expand our portfolios, because a lot of the things that I passively investing and I help others passively investing is through our partners who has a strong expertise in a certain asset class, maybe multifamily, short-term rentals, mobile home parks, and has had a lot of successful exits and $200-300 million in assets that they have in that space. So really with me and what I want to go and where I think I can help people is to help them reach their freedom goals through exceptional real estate syndication returns and using more of a data conservative approach and leveraging a network of sponsors. And really at the end of the day is to create long-term and meaningful relationships, business aside, right? Like how do we make sure that we'll have a legacy that's longer lasting beyond us? So here are some of our portfolios that we have today. And yeah, so why is it important to you? Because in our current macroeconomic environment, inflation, recession, whether you believe we're in there or not, and a war with Ukraine and Russia and interest rate hikes and stocks going down and viruses like COVID and monkeypox and so many others I hear on the news, it just seems a little scary out there. So it's just so important when we're going to make those investments, we'll leverage other people. So me and my partners, we leverage other people's time and knowledge, and that's the partners I selected, their financial strength, their market research skills, and I also conduct a third-party due diligence with my team and partners, so that for passive investors, which I also passively invest, that we'll be able to leverage and give passive investor ability to invest in inflation and recession-resistant assets, no tenants and toilets. That I do not love that. I love to focus on things I love, which is helping people by talking to them, understanding where they're at, and huge tax benefits in real estate as well, in case you don't know. Yeah, a lot of real estate investors pay little to no taxes, and we get access to larger investment opportunity rather than just single duplexes. It's larger 300-400 unit apartment complexes, and the most important part of the passive is not just the hands-off, but limited risks as from a personal liability and credit risk standpoint. And all that to me is freedom. I don't want to be on the beach and get a phone call about some tenants and toilet issues that I have to fix. So essentially, what we do is we're general partners along with our partners. We're Palace, and we're all on the plane together with our passive investors. We're heading to the same destination, and that's freedom. So that is a really quick intro. And if you're interested in chatting with me, I will send my contact information in the chat for in case you want to book a call. But without further ado, I like to introduce our speaker for today. It's important that we talk about financial independence and financial freedom all the time, but how do you look at the whole thing along with geography freedom, right? So I like to introduce our speaker for today, Kristie Sullivan. She has had 20 years of career in corporate accounting and finance, and she in the past always just took a couple of vacations each year, and then with a promise of more travel when she retires. And we all thought about that, and that was me too. But however, early 2019, she had an epiphany. She thought life is just too short, and she needed to start taking actions towards her dreams. And, similarly, 2020 was kind of a woke-up moment for me. So today she's a full-time traveler, and we, right before the call, we talked about where she's at in the world, and Macedonia and different places. So thanks to her good financial planning and also passive income, she started also another executive remote worker community to help corporate executives fulfill their dreams of travel without sacrificing their career or waiting for retirement. And I know she's going to also talk about her story and some of the people in her community as well. So I'm so excited to pass the mic to you, Kristie. We've already talked a few times, and I'm excited for the impact you'll make today. Take it away.
Thank you, Missy. I'm super excited to be here. I love sharing my story, and I hope that it inspires other people to think about what they really want and go after it. Because I think there's other opportunities that they just need to maybe take charge. All those things that you said, the reasons why real estate is important to you or the passive income is important to you. So I totally relate to all of that stuff. So I am. Sorry, go ahead.
Share your screen. I think that's what you were gonna do. But I do want to tell people, sorry that the chat is disabled for some reason, but you can actually ask questions in the Q&A. And I think Kristie is okay with you interrupting, and I'll probably interject the questions as I see them to be relevant. So if you have any questions, feel free to just ask them in the chat or in the Q&A. Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, I'm super happy to keep this informal and questions and all of that good stuff. So, but basically today I just kind of want to share my story about my lifestyle design of going from working in the corporate office to working from anywhere in the world. So a little bit about me. Missy's already kind of introduced me, but that's my corporate headshot back in the day. And it's so I'm originally from Minnesota, and I spent about 20 years in the corporate accounting and finance space, and climbing the corporate ladder, doing the W-2 job, this having the stability of a paycheck every 2 weeks, having, that going down that path. I thought that was the only path. And I knew I always had this like dream of travel, but I just didn't think it was maybe in the cards for me because I had a career and I could take. And so I thought, well, I'll take a couple of vacations every year, maybe one outside the US. But once I retire, I'll, fulfill these travel dreams. So I just kind of went along my way for a little over 20 years. And then one day I was sitting in the, I call it I had a boardroom blackout is what I call it. And I had this, like, I'm sitting in the boardroom of the company I was working at. Right before like the meeting was started, people were just kind of chit chatting. And the topic came up of like, what your dreams, your life goals were, what your life goals were. And without even like thinking about it, I just like blurted out that I want to live somewhere international outside the US for at least a month. And then it felt like I just had blacked out and didn't even know what I said. And I knew what I said. And then later I was like, that might have been a career limiting move because our company at the time wasn't like that amenable to remote working. So I thought, oh my gosh, like, what did I just do? And, but at the same time, I thought this is like, I'm being authentic. Like, this is really what I want. So why would I be embarrassed or concerned about what I said? Because it was like the truth. So this was like in early 2019. And so from that day on, like that idea stuck in my head and I had to like do something about it. So I had these like thoughts of like ultimate freedom. And I know Misi and I have had conversations about, I think you call it the Trinity of freedom. And it's time freedom, financial freedom, and geography. And I'm sure like your audience knows all about those things. Just having time, control of your calendar, financial, you don't maybe have to worry about money or do certain things because you need a certain amount of money. You have more options. And then the last one is geography freedom. So you have the freedom to go wherever you want to go. And in my case, that was the geography freedom was the one that I was most focused on. While I think I've maybe accomplished the other two, I didn't even, without like realizing it, I think but I was more focused on the geography one. So I like this picture because we took this picture last summer when we were sailing on the coast of Croatia. So I'm in the hammock behind. So I think that like represents my like time and maybe my time freedom. My significant other, Bill, is working at his laptop, and that's like our geography freedom because we can work from anywhere. And then just the fact that we're in Croatia sailing is like kind of symbolizes the financial freedom. So I think that's kind of cool. But so I had this idea in my head that just happened in that boardroom moment. And so from that, I'm like, I need to create a vision. Like, what am I trying to accomplish? And so with the help of my partner and he was already had started his own company that he could do remotely from anywhere in the world. So he was really just waiting. He was all about traveling and just waiting for me to be able to do that too. So we kind of like together watched travel vlogs on YouTube and read travel blogs and kind of got inspired and got some information about what it was like. And so we decided that we want to travel for at least 1 year and we're going to put our stuff in storage and we don't know where we're going to go, but we'll figure it out. So that was fine. So because I have like an accounting background, like former CPA and all that stuff, the financial side was really important for me to solve and be comfortable with this. So the first area that I think is like really important is your mindset. Like, I think in all aspects of life, mindset is super important. But to give you an example of the mindset shift that I made, so from reading travel blogs, it sounded like the cost of living in Thailand was $1,000 a month. And so I started to scrutinize every dollar I spent and by equating it to time that I could be living in Thailand. So an example is if I wanted to go to the day spa and it's $500, it was like, do I want to spend a day at the day spa, or do I want to spend the equivalent of that, which would be 2 weeks in Thailand? And so that like mental shift, like everything I spent was like, no, screw that. I'd rather be in Thailand. So I like that mental shift to really change a lot of things. The other thing with the mindset thing is I needed to have like a goal, a numbers goal. And so I had to figure out how much money I needed in like liquid cash to feel comfortable to take a year off of work. So based on the research of the travel blogs and looking across different resources, I estimated that I would need $3,000 a month to live, and per month to live and travel the world. And so $3,000 a month times 12 months is $36,000. So I had it in my head that I needed $36,000 cash to like live and travel for a year. So I had to figure out how to make $36,000. So I had already a little bit in savings, but I needed to really like a lot more. So the first thing I did was what I call a fire sale. I like sold as much as I possibly could of what I owned. Like everything was for sale. Like I joked, I could just like invite people to my house and tell them to like make an offer on anything they saw. It didn't matter. Because I made that mindset shift, I was not attached to any of these things anymore. It didn't matter. So I sold my furniture, my beds, TVs, all my kitchen stuff, my shoes, my clothes, anything I could sell, I sold. I used like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. I mean, I was hustling, meeting people all over, exchanging money for my stuff. And I made about $4,000 on what I could sell. And then the second big thing that I sold was, so I had 2 cars, and one of them was practical and one of them was kind of an impractical. It was a summer convertible. And so I figured I didn't need 2 cars because that was a lot of money, and that equated to a lot of time in Thailand, right? Like, so it was like, I got to sell. And I figured I better keep 1 car. But so I sold my convertible and I got about 11 grand out of it. So my fire sale resulted in about $15,000 of stuff. So the next thing that I did is, so you know how there's like 2 ways of making money. You can increase your revenue or decrease your expenses. So the fire sale increased my revenue, but my budget makeover reduced my expenses. So I went through my monthly budget, which I had always done a monthly budget since like I first joined the corporate world, but I never like made changes based on the budget. I just was calculating things. Like it was kind of silly, but so this was like the first time where I really like went through my budget and found things that's where I was spending money like in not smart ways. So I was able to go through my budget and trim about $2,000 a month from my personal budget. And the biggest category was food and beverages, like food and drinks. So I could trim $700 every month out of my budget, my spending, by not going out to eat like 3 or 4 times a week, not going out for lunch at work every day, not buying like random obscure groceries to try a recipe that was going to likely fail, or not stock my liquor cabinet for every possible friend that might come over and want their signature drink, like things like that. The second area was personal care. I saved about $600 a month just things like spa, manicures, pedicures, facials, hair products, makeup. I had over the years accumulated a ton of products, and I never like used them. I would use them for a little bit and then they would just sit in my bathroom. And so I said, moratorium on buying stuff like that. I'm going to use up what I have. So I ended up saving $600 a month that way. Shopping was similar. I saved $350 a month on shopping. No more clothes, no more shoes, no more stuff for around the house, no more kitchen gadgets, all of those things, and I saved $350, and it made sense because I was fire saling all that stuff too. So why would I buy it?
Yeah.
So,
And Chris, you brought up a good point. I know we're going through a lot of details about it, but the point is, you really have to set a goal in your mind, and you're gonna have to do everything to reach that goal. Basically, everything she thought about was, Thailand and how to make it happen. So I think staying so fixed on our goal is really important. So thank you for sharing that.
yes. So the budget makeover, I was able in a course of a year to accumulate $24,000. So between the $15,000 from the fire sale and the budget makeover, I hit that 36,000. I was over that 36,000. So I was feeling good about things. So I kind of had the financial piece in good shape. Next was my job. And I was really anxious about my job because I didn't know what to do about it. I had a lot of loyalty to the employer. And so I didn't want to like screw them over or do anything, or I felt like I was needed. And so this was the toughest part to me. But I knew I had to do it, and I knew that couldn't hold me back. So I came up with like 3 things that I thought. I figured I had 3 options. I could take a 1-year sabbatical. I could find a new remote job, or I could try and transition my current job into one that I could do remotely. So convince them to let my job be done remotely. So out of loyalty and probably the path of least resistance, I thought, well, let me work with my employer to see if we can figure something out. So I was going to do that first. And so in order to do that, I thought, well, I can't boil the ocean right away. So I should come up with a plan, like take some baby steps on how I can maybe like, I don't want to say worm my way into like this lifestyle, but just taking baby steps and having like small milestones instead of just walking in and saying, I want to like travel the world and work remotely. So I came up with this 4-step plan, and I didn't share this plan with like anybody really. But my 4 steps were, first, I was going to ask if I could work from like 2 specific places in the US, because I had family in Florida and in Minnesota. And if you know the weather in those 2 places, you know that you want to be in Minnesota in the summer and you want to be in Florida in the winter. So I thought, okay, I'm going to first ask if I can work 100% remote, but from those 2 places. And then my thought process was, once I prove that that's no big deal and no problem, then I'm going to say, okay, well, can I work anywhere within the US? And then I would do that and prove that that's no big deal. And so then I'd ask, okay, can I work anywhere that's within US time zones? Meaning I could work from Mexico, Central America, or South America, because they're all in the similar time zones. And then once I proved that was fine, then that was like the final one where it's like, okay, now I want to work from anywhere. Let's figure out how I can do this synchronously and asynchronously, depending on the time zone that I might be at. So that was my plan. So I had the money in the bank, right? And then I had this plan, but I kind of dragged my feet on how I was gonna like take that first step to ask to work from those 2 places in the US. Until February 2020, my significant other had this New Year's Eve idea and I think it was because he was drinking, but I'm not sure. He had this idea that we should go hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back up in one day. And I thought, are you crazy? That's like 17 miles. And it's like a mile down. Like the elevation was crazy. I didn't know if I could do it. But I thought I had to. I had no choice. I just did it. So we did this hike, and it took us 13 hours to do. But in the course of this hike, I feel like I had this like cathartic moment, and it was like, I need to make this happen. Like I'm just procrastinating, and I want to make this happen. So I set the date of April 1st. So that was about 1 month from the day of this hike. So 1 month from that point of time, I was going to like start the process with my employer. So, unfortunately in March, COVID hit, and I thought, so are all the offices closed? Hey, Macy, am I okay?
Yes.
Sorry, I froze a little, I think.
Oh yeah, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Offices closed. Everyone was forced to work from home, and this was like worldwide. So I was like, well, I better push out that April 1st date and see how things play out a little bit with the pandemic. Now, after a few months of the pandemic, it felt like this played right into my hand, because we, on a grand scale, proved that remote working works, which would help my case for what I was trying to accomplish. And so I realized that after a few months. So in June, so I reset the date and said, okay, so June 1st was my new date. I'm taking action June 1st. So June 1st, I messaged my leadership and asked to start having the conversation about remote work on a full-time basis. And so I had like the support of my immediate leadership, but I needed approval from my COO. And it took him a few weeks to get back to me on a decision. And when he did, I had that like fateful Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock meeting. And it was like, oh my gosh, like, I think I'm getting fired, that feeling when I got that meeting invite. But so I thought, but what's the worst that can happen? Because I kind of was semi-prepared to quit anyways. But as it turned out, they decided to eliminate my position because of the uncertainty in the market, the economy at the time, still in the middle of the pandemic. And so they offered me a severance package or a different position within the company. So the other position was remote, but it paid a lot less. And I took this as a sign from God. Like, not only did I already have like the money set aside to do this, they're now going to give me like 3 months salary on top of that. So it was like the perfect scenario almost.
So sometimes it's not always bad when you get laid off. You have to look on the bright side. Yeah,
exactly. And it was funny because nobody at work knew this, what I was like thinking or doing really. And so in that month when I was kind of like rolling off of my job, because my last day was July 31st. So I was about a month was my last day, but everybody was like, I just can't believe how well you're taking this and stuff. And it was like, in the back of my mind, I'm laughing because I'm like, well, I was kind of planning this and whatever. But so my last day was the end of July of 2020. And then on August 15th, we boarded a plane to Belgrade, Serbia, and we've been traveling ever since. So actually yesterday was exactly our 2-year anniversary of being full-time travelers. So, because that was the day we boarded the plane to Serbia. And these pictures, so that first trip over to Europe, we spent a week in Belgrade, which this is a picture of the Iron Gates. The top picture is a the Iron Gates in Đerdap National Park in Serbia. Beautiful. We did a lot of hiking there. The lower left is Dubrovnik in Croatia. And then we spent about 2.5 months there. And then the bottom right picture is in Istanbul, Turkey. And we spent about a week there before returning to the US. So in total, we were gone about 3 months. So for that first trip. And then we went back. We periodically go back to the US to get new clothes or change of seasons and see family and friends and stuff like that. So I wanted to share just a few like places that we've been. So we spend about a third of the time in the US with family and friends. We spend a third in Mexico and a third in Europe. That's how we've spent the last 2 years. So in and we usually stay places for about a month at a time. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But in Mexico, we've lived in Cabo, Puerto Vallarta, Guadalajara, Merida, and Playa del Carmen is near Cancun. So we've gone there a few times. And then in Europe, we have spent time in Poland, Austria, Hungary, Italy, Croatia a lot because we really like it there. Belgrade or Serbia, and then Montenegro. And then on the far left over, it's kind of off the map, but the Canary Islands is where we spent like the month of June to July, this just recently. So that's the first time in Spain for me. And then now we're in North Macedonia, which is, I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but it's right there. A lot of people don't know where that is. Can you see my mouse, by the way?
Yes,
Just
yes,
out of curiosity.
yes, we can see your mouse. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think we'll have a few questions pretty soon. Well, whenever we get to the end in a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So I shared a couple. I'm really active on LinkedIn, so I hope everybody like feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to like meet new people. But I shared a post recently on my 5 lessons I learned. It's more of full-time travel. It's more affordable than you think. It's important to get off the beaten path. You can see we've traveled a lot in the Balkans, which is considered off the beaten path. Expect to meet interesting people in unexpected ways. We've met the coolest people with the most interesting stories in our travels. I think that's one of the best parts of this. I also recognize that full-time travel isn't for everybody, and that's okay. But I think that more travel is available to those who want it. And there's strategies that you can do to make that happen. And then the world is waiting to be explored. There's like so many interesting things to do and see. So those were my 5 lessons. So I wanted to talk quickly. I think people here are probably all numbers people and love this idea of investments and net worths and all of that good stuff. So I basically, I calculate my net worth about monthly. Sometimes I forget some months and whatever, but I think of my investments in 2 categories, short-term and long-term. And the long-terms are the investments that I really don't want to touch unless I absolutely have to. And the short-term is more for liquidity purposes. And sometimes I don't want to touch them anyways, but they're there if I have to, and with less maybe penalties or taxes or something. But so from a cash perspective, I had my savings, like 50K that I had accumulated. I had my severance money, and I also had a withdrawal from a qualified plan under the CARES Act. So that was a special one-time thing because of the pandemic, where I could withdraw up to $100,000 from a qualified plan, penalty free. I just had to pay the tax on it, and I could pay the tax over 3 years. So I was able to, so I'm going to be on my 3rd year of paying that tax. So I took the money out, and then I put it into a brokerage account. So it was still getting, it was still invested, but it had good liquidity if I needed the money to either live on or I wanted to invest, because in the second bullet, I did some, I don't know if it's like technically considered passive income investing, but I did partner with some people on some joint venture real estate, some short-term real estate deals. And I did some lending out of that too. So some of those profits, that helped me provide money that I could live off of the past 2 years. So that's been really important. And then the last one is I have like a stock portfolio. I just have some stocks that, whatever, if I had to cash them out, I could. From a long-term perspective, I have what a lot of people have. I have my qualified plan, my qualified accounts of 401ks and IRAs from my employers, a variable life insurance policy where it has a cash surrender value, but I can also borrow against it if I have liquidity needs. And then to suppress my FOMO, I have a little exposure to crypto too, just for fun. So as far as like exposure is concerned, I didn't look at this until like now, just for purposes of this. But I kind of have my assets are about, and I don't know if this is good or bad, it's like just what I have. I have about 60% in stocks right now and 30% in cash, 5% in crypto, and about 5% invested in different real estate things. So that's how it kind of lays out for me.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the CARES Act thing. I remember hearing about it and I didn't do anything. I think it would have been a good opportunity to take some of it out to invest in real estate as well during that time. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, and the variable life insurance I've heard it being a very great tool for many people who tap into for emergency funds and things like that if needed. Yeah.
Yeah, so I set that up. It's actually indexed to the S&P 500, I think. And so I'm kind of getting some exposure that way. And I set it up because I haven't been able to, so I know there's like the backdoor Roth, but I exceeded the income limits to invest in a Roth IRA. So I like the idea that a life insurance policy can kind of have those after tax contributions, and then you can pull it out with by borrowing against it. So it kind of has like some Roth features to it. So overall, from a net worth perspective, so the headline reads that my net worth basically is the same as it was when I started. But it has, so you can see the line, it peaked in November of 2021. And then it has dropped significantly. I think that's because of that's mostly because of the stocks and the crypto. But I kind of think it's a bit of a win that while I would love my net worth to have skyrocketed, it's like, well, I'm not worse off at least. And I had all these amazing travel experiences for 2 years. So I kind of took it almost as like a win, and hopefully things will rebound maybe, or I'll find other ways to invest my money to get that back up. But so I basically I really spent the first year of our travel not working and not thinking about work and not like worrying about it. And it was just like, nope, I'm taking this time off. But in the course of traveling, I realized the incredible opportunity people have that are like in the corporate world, that they could travel and work remotely. And there really wasn't a travel community for a demographic like me, like I don't like to say older, but it's people that have like serious careers, and there's travel communities for the like younger people in their 20s, it seems like, and there's travel communities for like my parents that go on bus trips and stuff like that around Canada and the US and whatever. But there seemed to be a need. So I started as Misi kind of mentioned earlier, a community for corporate executives. And we basically meet virtually. We kind of come together on an online platform. I partnered with mighty networks to create this online platform. And so we meet online, but we take remote working trips together. So I started this like a year ago, and we've taken 3 trips together, and then we have one coming up in a couple of weeks in Croatia where we're going to spend a month there. So we plan an itinerary that lets people work during the week, and then during the nights and weekends we can have fun and explore and do fun travel things. So it's kind of like the workcation or leisure, or I don't know what those other words that people come up with, the blending of working and travel. So our membership, our community right now is about 50 people, but just a couple, let me do a time check just to be sure.
Yeah, I think we're probably good after this. Yeah, we
Yep,
do have some questions queued up.
Okay, perfect. So just really quick, some members of our community, just to show you kind of some cool stories about how they're incorporating travel and remote working. Nairi in the upper left, she's actually from Australia, and she had her dream job in New York City right before COVID hit, and she was in a job where she had to like work remotely. So she ended up doing house sitting and traveling all over the country, doing house and pet sitting gigs while she worked remotely. So she was able to travel and work remotely during the pandemic. Leah is from Minnesota. She works for a medical device company. She hates Minnesota winters, so she travels south in the winters and works remotely from there. Paul, who's originally from Boston, but was an executive in LA, left to travel full time like 15 years ago. And over time, he's picked up some gigs. So he travels still, but he also like does corporate trainings on like through Zoom meetings and stuff. And Jelena has an interesting story. She was originally from Croatia, but escaped before the war there in '91. And she grew up in New Jersey, but travels in her blood. She's a single mom. She's got 2 kids. They travel like every other month. She's like teaching her kids how to navigate bus stations and airports and train stations, and they carry their own luggage. And I mean, so she's got like such an awesome story. And then she travels with us. Her parents will watch her kids, and sometimes she travels with us too. So we get to spend time with her.
I love all the stories because you don't have to be 365 days of the year traveling and just by the beach sipping on some margarita. Like I think sometimes Instagram give us the wrong image. Like you could incorporate that into your lifestyle. Just do something like 1 month away, working remote in somewhere, maybe with the approval from your employer or your job, and you can incorporate it. And I love seeing those examples, and they're all from our walks of life. So it can be done.
Yeah, there's definitely strategies. So this is the last slide. This is one of my favorite beaches in Croatia. It's Paziacha Beach. It's just south of Dubrovnik. So I took it last summer, and I just think it's a really pretty picture. Maybe it's cliche with, like you said, in Instagram, but my contact information is here. Reach out on LinkedIn. I'm super active. Kristie Sullivan, executive remote worker. Go to my website. I have a lead mag. I have a ebook that you can access on my website, or reach out to me. I'm happy to share it, or email me at Kristie@executiveremoteworker.com. Missy can also connect us. I'm happy to share. I'm happy to connect with anybody, answer any questions, share anything. So that's about all I had today.
Thank you so much, Kristie. We got some questions for you. First is about, this may not apply to you, but maybe you can share with what other people have done. How do you handle your current home maintenance items? Like, do you pay your bills automatically? Can you do your taxes remotely? Do you have to come back, take care of certain, like kind of those mundane activities you have to do? Or does someone look after those things in the US for you?
Yes, no, that's a great question. So we don't have homes. I sold them. So I had a primary residence and I had a cabin in Minnesota that I sold those. So I don't really have a home. All our stuff is in storage. I have some bills because I need like basic car insurance because I still have my car in storage, but I still have to pay some kind of insurance on it. I auto pay all my bills. I'm trying to think what bills I actually have. That's about it. I think that's it because my car's paid off.
Yeah.
I have my mail going to, I actually have my mail going to my parents' house. And then my mom takes pictures. She opens it for me, so I trust her. Now my partner, Bill, uses Traveling Mailbox. And so that's a company where they give you a address and then they'll send you pictures of your mail, and then you can tell them which ones you want to open and then they'll scan it for you.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's like strategies you can do for things like that. Phones was a big one because of two-factor authentication so when we travel, we get local SIM cards. So we have like foreign phone numbers because we want to be able to use Google Maps and stuff when we're out and about. So we had to figure that one out. We kind of did a test actually we did a test run in Costa Rica when I was still in the corporate world, testing out some of these things. So I had already sort of thought about that, but I need to keep, so I carry two phones. I need to keep one phone that has my US phone number in it so that when I log into places, I can do the two-factor authentication stuff. So that one is a big one. Did I hit all the things that they?
I think so. Yeah. And not everyone needs to sell everything. I think you can start with trying some things and see how that works. I think the important thing is taking baby steps with anything, investing, working remote, the lifestyle you want to start taking baby steps. And the next thing is like, if I can do this one time, I can do this 10 times. So it all starts there. So similar question to the last one, but what about the Medicare? How do you take care of that? Especially when you're working remote by yourself, or even when you're not working remote?
Yeah, so I just went and bought on the, what do you call it, out on the open market, a health insurance plan. I did that for a while. And I just got like a high deductible plan. I don't have kids. That's another thing. So my partner has an adult daughter, but we're pretty much don't have kids to like worry about. But so for a while I bought an insurance plan on the open market, but then I met some people and some digital nomads, and they said that they all did like a MediShare plan, MediShare insurance. And so I do that now. And I also have travel insurance through like Safety Wing. So they have like just a recurring nomad insurance. So that's another bill actually, because that's like $64. Like those two things are recurring expenses to me. But
would you mind sharing roughly how much it is, kind of budgeting purposes? I mean, I'm sure it varies by person depending on the plan, but just roughly.
Yeah. So I think I spend like, so the MediShare stuff is like $200 a month, maybe, which was cheaper because when I bought it on the open market, it was like $350, and that was the cheapest I could find. So I was saving a little bit with that. And then the nomad insurance for my age is, because if you're like younger, it's cheaper. I think mine's like $60 or $65 a month or something like that. So
okay, so roughly budget about $300 or so for insurance. Yeah, make sure you have that.
And the one thing that we found actually that's kind of interesting is like we spent a couple months in Guadalajara earlier this year in Mexico. Healthcare is like really good there, and it's really affordable. I mean, I ended up just paying out of pocket for things that like some recurring medical things that I did back in the US, and it was like way cheaper. So it's like So my partner had an MRI. Here's an example. He had an MRI with like the contrast, whatever. It was like the fancy one. In the US, we looked it up and they said that it was like upwards of like $8,000 for that MRI in the US. And his was like $400 or something like that. So it was significantly cheaper.
In many other countries, it's cheaper in the US.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. So we have a question from Julie that you know. She asked, how do you guys decide where to travel?
Oh, that's a good question. So we kind of have like a short list of things just based on like where we like from travel blogs or where we hear other people going. It's like, so we have other friends that travel and it's like, oh, they're going to Georgia. We should go there. Like, and they say that there's like, you can do this, this, and this there. And that sounds interesting. Or where there's like more nomadic people. So for example, like Bansko, Bulgaria is not a place where like tourists usually go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But digital nomads will go there and interesting people that like to travel will go there. Rome is, to contrast that, is like maybe less digital nomad and more tourist. So it's like, maybe depending on what we're looking for, we would want to pick based on stuff like that too. And the seasons, that's a big one. So we chase the sun. Maybe she was kind of getting at that too, because we like the warm weather and beaches and stuff.
Makes sense. The next question is just about planning this in general. There's usually tax implications when you're traveling outside the country. Maybe you also have to pay taxes on the state or the country you're living. So how do you do that planning? I think we talked about it a little bit, but I would love for you to share with the audience.
So even though I was like a CPA, I like hand all of that off to a tax firm back in the US. Now, the US is like, there's only like there's two countries in the world that tax their citizens no matter where they're at. So I'm always paying tax in the US, income tax in the US. But I never trigger that, like, generally speaking, and I'm not like an expert, so don't like throw me under the bus, but generally speaking, there's a 183-day rule in places. Like, you don't establish permanent residency in a country if you're there less than 183 days. So that kind of helps us avoid that. And we're not like triggering, we're not really staying places long enough to really trigger permanent establishment for our businesses or anything either. So
yeah, I think you're only saying like a month or two, maybe 3. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question is about travel. Do you stay in hotels when you travel the world? Or?
Yeah, so no, so our rule of thumb is if we're going to stay somewhere for a few days or a week, then we would stay in a hotel. But if we're going to stay like longer than that, which 99% of the time we do, we get vacation rentals, mostly through Airbnb, sometimes through booking.com, maybe once through VRBO or Vrbo, or some that locations have their own kind of vacation rental platform. But Airbnb is pretty much it. We're slaves to Airbnb.
Understand.
And because the thing with that is like, and that's where with the ebook I think is helpful, because I laid out exactly what we look for when in vacation rentals, because when you're somewhere in a longer term basis, you really want like a kitchen, because you save time and you save money when you can make your own meals. Like, going out to eat all the time is like expensive and time consuming. So if you can make some meals at home, it is really helpful.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I'd like to just quickly summarize some of my key takeaways from this conversation. First, just start with a mindset shift that it is possible, and put a number on the goal you're trying to get. And really think of as a sacrifice. Every decision you're making against your goal is a sacrifice. You know, that's 2 weeks in Thailand, you have to give up. Well, 3 weeks in Europe, you have to give up. So really mindset of the goal, and how you're shifting your mindset based on. The second thing is taking actions. You know, you talk to your manager about it, even though things didn't go as you planned, but you talk to your manager, start taking the actions. That's probably the most 2 important things I realized. And the third thing is just, you know, taking more steps from there, because once you start taking baby steps, you realize it's not that difficult, and you start surrounding yourself with the right group of people. So yeah, really appreciate your time, and hopefully, you know, the audience got some value as well, which I believe they did with the questions they asked. And I know some of them are really passionate about traveling, so how to take this remote and really design their lifestyle. And I really appreciate you sharing. So unless there's any other questions, feel free to put in the chat. Otherwise, this will be the end of the presentation and the series for this month. We're going to stay on here for another 30 seconds, but feel free to drop off if you, there is a thank you from Julie. Feel free to drop off if you need to drop off.
And I wanted to say thank you, Misi, for giving me this opportunity to appreciate it.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure. It was really fun. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now. Thank you all.